Okay, that should work. Cool. So, we're going to go over the workbook first. The first workbook we are working on, well, is the workbook everyone's working on. So, we got this, given this art book like, what, I think it was last November I gave it you. I'm going through it slowly. We were meant to have a little bit more time on this, but we're going to kind of speed it up because some of the sections can be crossed over, which is fine. So the research section, so as I was saying before, you want to pick 2 different genres and come up with as many ideas as you can for prompts. So you've got your genres here. Your mind map's pretty straightforward. I think everyone's done that bit so far. Genre, here is where you will place images based on your genre. So if you picked Wild West or Middle Ages, you'll place your reference images there. And then game, you want to try and find at least one game and some other. If you want to do films as well, I'm not particularly fussed. If you want to do half games and half films, I know some of them have got, the only real thing for Cyberpunk that a lot of people know of, obviously, is Cyberpunk 2077. There are other games, but if you Google them, there are a lot of older games that aren't really going to be that great. So, everyone should have done the research section. That was nice and easy. That can be done in a couple hours, if that. Silhouetting section. So for silhouetting, I wanted everyone to... The presentation's on Classroom if you need it. And the recording's on Classroom as well. Find a human pose online, turn it all black, and paint shaded areas and add extra shapes over the top to create 6 unique designs. So that one's pretty straightforward. And then you place it all in here. And then Shapes 2, which is using just black and white inside of Photoshop or on paper. I want you to create 6 different character silhouettes of your own shape and design. So for that, what I want you guys to do is kind of create your own silhouette. So try and make your own silhouette and then creating 6 different shapes and designs. So for the first one, it's 6 different poses that you like. And then for this one, it's 6 different designs. So there's 12. But again, you're all clever people. I know you guys can do it relatively quickly. Sketching section, which is the last one we covered before half term. So there is the presentation and the video on Classroom. Using just the brush and erase tools instead of Photoshop or any physical medium, aka paper and pencil, you'll just take one of your initial silhouettes and refine them into a more usable design to suit your character. So I think majority of people should be on that point. And then there's a second one, which is just using, instead of using black and white, create a 3-tone version of your character, which means using black as your base with shadow, grey for your main large areas, and white for detail, which again is in the video. So today we're going to be doing design. The design section itself is, I think, pretty straightforward. So we're going to go through the presentation. Here we'll be looking at the basics of what makes characters stand out, storytelling through design, and creating a grounded design. We've not gone into as much detail as I'd like, but that's because if I was given as much time as I'd like, we'd spend probably about 3 or 4 lessons on this, because there's a lot to cover. But I want to give you guys sort of an initial sort of deep dive, like dip your toe in the water before we go head first thing. I don't want to confuse and scare people when doing this. So firstly, look at the presentation that will be available in Classroom named Character Design, which is this one, which we'll go through in a minute. Go through the task first as well. So here you will take your character from the previous task and experiment with shape and design. I want to see 2 to 3 different variations of your design. This is where you start to add shape, form, detail, and add storytelling elements to your character. You can use more than one of your silhouettes if you desire, but feel free to iterate on only one if you have a particular favourite. This is where you'll start adding more of your research elements and really get to begin designing the character as a whole. So the character design stuff, obviously, will make more sense now when we go through it. So let's present. It is actually going to present full screen, correct, nice. So, character design is something it doesn't just apply to characters, but this philosophy really applies to characters, but you want to think of this when you're designing anything, really. It should just be a design, like a design overall topic, but it makes more sense because we're doing characters. So, really good and really bad character design, obviously, is something that people are going to say, it's quite subjective. You're not going to really have a unanimous decision. Like, not everyone's going to go, this character's perfectly designed or this character's awful, but in general sweeping statements you can kind of tell what's good and what's bad. So what is character designer, or what is character designing? So a character designer or character artist creates the entire concept, style and artwork for a character from scratch. This often includes a deep look into the character's personality to develop a visual idea of what character's physical features. So it's all about not just drawing stuff, and this is why I try to iterate. When you're drawing stuff and you're just being free form and cool and all that, you want to kind of get that out of the way first, because the actual designing part of it, you want to have, and this is why references is important. You want to have the design and you want to have the actual background, the character already done. Okay, especially for main characters. If you're doing a background character, it's not as important. You don't need to, if there's just a random NPC on the ground, you don't need to know that this guy has a wife and 2 kids and his boss is horrible and blah blah blah, because you're only going to see him for like half a second. That's just a waste of your time. But if you're designing a character that's like the main character or an important character that has a very key role, you want to go into it thinking, okay, what does this character's personality say? You want to be able to look at a character and guess what they're like straight away. Creating an entire character from scratch, human or otherwise, takes a lot of creative energy. It's really difficult to do this if you are someone who just likes to just sit and just go at it. If you're someone that's just like, I just want to draw, you can be a good character artist, you can be really good at it, but you have to develop a way of getting your ideas across, and you have to kind of subconsciously think of these things. Typically, the character design process starts with a briefing of the character. The character could be a mutant turtle with ninja-like abilities, or just some person who lives in a simple work-a-day lifestyle. So again, if you're designing Ninja Turtles, you wouldn't, they've got a story to tell based on their designs. If you look at some of what would be considered the greatest characters of all time, stuff like Kratos from God of War, or Nathan Drake, or even Mario, you can tell straight away what's going on. Mario's a plumber. He isn't wearing a business suit. He isn't, you can tell what the character is straight away. Just have a look at chat. I think Vivian Medrano does character design really well. If you want to pop a link in chat, I'll have a look at that and we'll have a look and see what's going on. I think the best character artist at the minute on probably the planet is either Frank Zeng or Raph Grisey. Raph is he's beautiful as an artist. Like, generally, his work, he's done loads of versions of characters. Most of my characters are demons. That's a good thing, but also why? You gotta think, why are you drawing demons? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's kind of, if you were told to work on the My Little Pony game and you're drawing demons, you gotta think, okay, is this really gonna fit? Once the artist chooses one or a couple of thumbnail styles, they will often paint more detail and bring those thumbnails to life. This could include trying different clothes, different hairstyles, facial styles, and many different weapons or props if applicable. So, it's not just, I've made a character, here you go. No character is just the first pass. Like, an example I always like to use is Kratos. So Kratos' design is very, very unique. Considering he's a Greek Spartan warrior, he's very pale with a big red stripe down him. Originally they did have him looking more tan, but he looked like every other character in the game, and they wanted him to stand out. And because it was on the PS2 wasn't really good at making things with skin tone look quite good, so they decided to make him really pale and create that as part of his backstory. And then they added the big red stripe. Originally it was going to be blue, but it didn't make much sense. But because then they added the storytelling element of, well, it's his family and all this, it made sense, and the character does make a lot more sense now. Yeah, he originally had a blue one, you're right, Cameron. So, why do we spend so long working on... What do we spend so long working on when designing characters? So, these are sort of the key things. Like, you don't have to be an amazingly talented artist to be a really good character designer. It is designing. You can be a good character artist, and you can make characters look realistic, and do the hyper-realism Instagram style art where you're just using 3 colours and you make what looks like a photograph, but that's just you replicating things. That's not you designing a character. So drawing, have a very high level of technical skill, be able to create work in a variety of styles showing attention to detail. So I'd say this kind of, it is a point, isn't it? If you can't draw and you want to be a character artist, I would say spend your time studying anatomy. Okay, anatomy is the part on there. With high technical skill, it doesn't mean you have to be really fancy at drawing. It just means you have to be able to be proficient at drawing your stuff. You have to be able to... You obviously, every artist uses reference, but you shouldn't have to sit there and go, right, the leg bone connects to the hip bone. You don't have to sit there and recite a rhyme just to go through the whole process of drawing a character. Because you may not even draw humans, you may end up just drawing frogs for the rest of your career, who knows. Creativity is probably the key one. Use your imagination to produce original, innovative ideas to create work that sparks the director's imagination and that helps to tell a story. So you're not there to appease yourself, you're there to appease the director, okay? The director is the head of the game itself, so you could try and design this character and you think it's the most perfect, badass thing ever, and your director's going to go, no, it doesn't fit our theme of the game. You can't then go, you're ruining my ideas, this game's going to be awful. It doesn't matter. You're there to use your ideas to fit the brief. Okay? I think it's one of the things of people need to, when you're an artist, you kind of need to, when you do your own stuff, you can do whatever you want. But when you're working in a studio, it is kind of, you have to fit the brief. You have to kind of keep your ego in check a little bit, because you're going to be drawing stuff and making stuff and creating stuff for a product. Collaboration. So understand what the director and art lead wants and be able to take and act on feedback to alter your designs and work well with other artists and designers. So if you make this really, say you were working on Mortal Kombat, I don't know, and you're making a new ninja character and you think it's really badass and he looks awesome, and then Ed Boon comes around and says, can you change this, can you change that, and you edit it, that's absolutely fine. You can still keep your original design, because that's yours, but if they say change it, you have to kind of take it on board. And feedback is always good, even if it's negative feedback. Positive feedback's obviously better, but negative feedback, you can obviously get something from all bits of feedback. No artist is ever 100% perfect, because everything's always adapted. There's always something. If you can't do it better, you can do it faster. If you can't do it faster, you can do it more efficiently. It's one of them things of, no artist is ever perfect. If you could snap your fingers and produce artwork, then yeah, that's kind of fine. But there's always something that people can improve on. Understanding of the pipeline. So know the capabilities of the animators and create designs appropriate for the medium of the project if your work is going to be produced on anything more than a standard single frame image. So if say you end up becoming a mangaka or someone that draws manga, and you're designing characters for that world, right? Don't know why you would, but anyway, you would be designing them. You would basically create a character sheet, which we're going to have a look at in a minute of what a character sheet is. You're going to be designing something for a character sheet, right? And it doesn't really matter how you pose them, because they're going to be dynamically posed. But if your character has, say they're like a blob creature, right? You've got to think, okay, how is this blob creature going to move? Because you've got to go hand out to an animator, and some poor animator's got to then work out how they're going to animate this blob creature. And it's a lot harder to animate a blob than it is to animate a human, because humans have bones and skin, and we're pretty built for movement, whereas some sort of viscous fluid creature isn't going to work. So know the scope of your animators, know the talent of your animators and the people you're working with, and then you can apply designs for that. If you make a design and your art director or your studio manager turns around and goes, I love it, and then hands it off to the animators and goes, you've got to try and make this work, that's not your fault. That's up for the art director and that to figure out. But in the meantime, if you are creating stuff, try and think of your poor animators. But again, if you're not working on something that requires animators, go right ahead. Have a passion for the medium and the love of the industry, not just one area. So if your favourite game of all time is Fortnite, you only ever talk about Fortnite, your favourite game is Fortnite, you dream of Fortnite skins all day, every day. That's cool, but you're only ever going to design things that look like Fortnite if that's the way you're doing it. Understanding multiple areas to a degree will help you be a better designer, not just a character sense. So this also includes, this doesn't just mean play multiple games, get multiple ideas. It means look at references for art books. If you're just a really big art nerd, you're not just I like 2D drawings art nerd. Look at 3D artists, look at animators, look at people that do VFX stuff. Look at, you wouldn't just have one thing that you really enjoy. You've got to kind of like other areas, just because then you can kind of fit your design to that world. It's the same thing as, like, you'll hear me, James, and John go on about, we kind of want people to go outside more. Obviously not during a lockdown, but when we're not in quarantine, it's kind of, we want you guys to go out and get your own references for things, because if you're relying on video games and other people's photos to look at the world for reference, you're going to be seeing it through someone else's eyes, and it's not going to be what you see, so it's not going to be your true potential. So we kind of want you guys to have a look at taking your own photos, especially getting your own references, because that's going to make you stand out. You will start noticing that when people are using online textures, and they will, people do, they go to the first Google search page, find the best one, and that's it. If you're taking your own references, you stand out immediately because you've obviously taken a photo of something that not a lot of people have. And you're using that, and it makes your work stand out more. If that's your ideals, then please leave. What was that in reference to? If your ideals, was that about the Fortnite comment then? So, overly complicated does not equal good. So I have to state this. Just because a character design has lots of bells and whistles does not mean it's good, okay? You may be tempted to try and make your character overly complicated and add lots of details to try and make them more visually interesting and memorable, but this can do the opposite. So, this is what I like to call Final Fantasy X and onward syndrome. So, if your character has, say for example, say you're doing the cowboy one, right? You're doing the cowboy task, and you want to give your character a scar above their eye, and you're like, oh, we got that from a gunshot from his mortal enemy, and they both thought they won. That's cool, but then you don't want to then go, oh well, he's also got this scar from when he cut himself from shaving, and then he's got this bruise, and he's got this, and he's got that, and you just add in more stuff on. You kind of, we talk about this a little bit later, but you kind of want to add visual flair that's memorable and very easy to see. You don't want to add, well, he's got 57 chest hairs because his mother died at 57. It's kind of like, it doesn't make sense. That's overly complicating things for the point of being overly complicated. It takes away the impact. Exactly. It's a thing I like to call micro detail with exaggerated proportions, or what we'll call SPES later. Exaggeration of things. So you want to have a couple key features that are detailed. Like obviously, if you're making a character with lots of leather, clothing, you want to add the leather detail. But what I mean is, you don't want to add like he's got this badge because he won this in World War One. He got this badge. He's got this pin because his grandmother gave it to him, and then he's got this particular piece of handkerchief from this, and he wears one red sock and one blue sock because he's so torn. You know what I mean? It's like you're just adding detail and detail and detail to a character that doesn't really need it. So your character should be able to tell a story through their design, or we should be able to tell just from the design what they're about, their alignment, job, history, personality as examples. So adding stuff for the sake of adding detail can work really well if used sparingly, but if overused or if the design has got no cohesion, which means like no flow, no sort of it's got like no sort of mix to it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't stick together. It's fighting against itself. It can make a character look bloated or designed by committee. Designed by committee is something that you will hear a lot when you talk about a lot of modern games, especially Call of Duty. So if any first-person shooter comes out and it's like Call of Duty, it's literally immediately branded as designed by committee. What that means is that what they do is they'll design the entire game and all the characters to market the game rather than do what's best for the game itself. So they don't think of the game as art, they think of the game as a media tool, which is perfectly fine. Games are there to sell. They're not making games just for art's sake. Some people do, but that's more indie stuff. Making games by design or by committee, designing and making a game by committee is like, okay, this happened a couple of years ago when PUBG came out. Everyone turned around and went, right, battle royales are really popular, let's have a battle royale. So Call of Duty had a battle royale. Star Wars would probably get a battle royale. Everything gets a battle royale. Even like Fallout 76 got a battle royale. Didn't fit in with the game at all, but they added it because it's designed by committee. They wanted to try and drag that in. You don't want your character to have that because your character's not going to be memorable. Because you're going to be designing something that's like flash in the pan. Like people are going to go, wow, this is really cool. They're going to forget it 10 minutes later. Like, does anyone know the exact name of the one particular skin in Fortnite? No, they don't. You'll have the ones you like, but you're not going to remember every single thing. But guarantee if you're a fan of RPGs, you're going to kind of remember a lot of the characters from the RPGs that stand out because their designs are there. A character being overly complicated can be just as bad as a character being overly simple. Simplicity isn't a bad thing, depending on the game. And we'll go through some examples in a minute of characters that are simple but have complex areas, or you can tell they've been designed to be complex while looking really simple. Excess, if done right, can help a character, but it's a very fine line. So this is something you will only learn through doing and making a lot of mistakes. You will make a lot of mistakes as a character artist, and that is 100% fine. Honestly, I would rather see people make mistakes and learn from them than design a character perfectly first time and think they're God's gift, because it's not going to happen. You look at people again like Frank Zeng, Raf Grazei, anyone that's like top tier character artists in the world right now. You have a look, you look at their, like, when they do interviews, they say, oh yeah, I started drawing when I was like 12. It's like, oh great, well I'm, however old. Oh, they've started way before me. I know artists, 2D artists, that are incredible 2D artists. They didn't start till they were in their 20s. Okay? It's never too late to start designing. It's all about the principles and how you do it. Smartly working on stuff. Doing sketches. Sit with a book on the tram, and as soon as someone steps on, you time yourself, give yourself a minute and try and sketch them in a cartoony way or something. Or go and do some live studies. It's a very fine line. You learn from making mistakes. So, this is a character that I quite like. Now, by the group saying, do we think this is overly designed, or do we think it's just right? What can we tell from the character? So if people want to just pop up with answers on audio, you can do. You think it's overly designed? You think it's a villain? Okay. A bit over. Right, cool. So has anyone got anything they want to say on audio-wise? Or is everyone just like going to sit in chat and type?
Ew.
Ew. So, go for it.
I personally think that's... Oh god, I can hear myself.
I'll mute myself. I'll turn myself down, it's fine.
I personally think that it's just way too over-designed. I don't know if it's because...
You can't really make out any detail.
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking. Like, there's so much detail that you can't see it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it all blends together into it's just lines.
But I can't tell when to look first.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So,
I think there's roses on the dress. I think.
Yeah. So, does anyone know where this is?
I'm not entirely sure.
Does anyone know where this is from?
Persona 5.
It's Persona 5, yeah.
It looks like Persona.
It's P5. Yeah. So it's actually, some couple have said, oh, it's a villain. It's actually not. It's actually meant to be like the in the game there's a thing called confidants, which are like your friends, and they all have these like special like summons, and this is meant to be the one for the Arcana of lovers. This is meant to be like the ultimate personification of the lovers, like Arcana in the game. And it's like, okay, its design is over the top. So the dress is, they've got the whole, this whole domineering sort of character design, and some aspects work. Like I think the mask works really well because it's got this whole masquerade feel, but the hair is so over the top. The dress, they've overdrawn this so much.
I feel if they toned down the dress a bit, the hair could work still.
Yeah. It's too much going off, isn't it? There's too many areas to look at.
I think the hair with the dress doesn't work. But I think the dress without the hair also hair without the dress would work, but dress without the hair wouldn't work.
Yeah. So
because the dress itself is just so complicated. Yeah.
They need to choose one thing.
The rose area of it does just blend into being kind of a patch of muddy colour.
It's the fact as well that she's got this whole... Okay, she's got this masquerade thing. She's got this sort of Moulin Rouge style thing going on. I don't know how this is physically happening, but there you go. But then she's got this big dress, which is like a can-can dancer's dress, with little roses on it. And she's got all these roses here. Like, the roses kind of make sense because then they're leading to this, and she's obviously got these. So these guys have got less detail on them, but you can kind of tell what's happening. And then she's got little hearts all over her shoes and all over her dress. It's just emphasising this thing of love, love. Her mask is covered in little kiss icons. It's like, it's way too much. It's way too much. So this is a thing of, I'd say it depends on your style, but I'd say this is just over the line. A couple of tweaks and this would be absolutely perfect. But this design was... This was like the initial sort of sketch. It was then dumbed down a lot and given to the artists, and they kind of made it better. But yeah, this is kind of over designed. This is good for an initial thing. If you're getting all your ideas down on paper, you could send this to your art director and they'll go, I like this, I don't like this, tone this down. This is what I'd call like an initial design. It's perfect for an initial design, but for a final character design, it's overly complex.
Also, I want to mention real quick
Yeah.
the fact that she's like got the sort of stems around the guy's necks,
Yeah.
right? To me, that makes her seem more like a villain than what it really should do.
Yeah.
I get that love traps people, but to me, I've always found it as kind of like a femme fatale kind of thing, and femme fatales tend to be on the villain side.
Yeah, I think
That's
that's what they're trying to go with. I don't know why she's ahead of everything. I'm just trying to push it to the
Yeah,
back.
the character that she's the persona of, one of her phrases is even roses have thorns. So
Yeah.
it's like basing off that.
It's that, but they've
I feel
also they've designed the whole character to be this femme fatale, but they've gone with too many inspirations, which I kind of get. But they've added instead of adding subtle things, like she's called Panther, isn't she? So in game she's known as Panther. So they've added leopard spots, which I don't get, but they're kiss mark leopard spots. So it's kind of like they're just cram fisting every. This looks like the in Asda or any big supermarket chain, all the supermarkets are available. When you go there and you have a look around February and it's like the Valentine's Day seasonal aisle, it looks like they just stuck everything together and it's kind of it's like it's a bit too much. Her colour palette is red, pink, pink, red, red, pink, various shades of red and pink. They didn't stick to one.
Yeah, it's pink, red, and black, and that's it.
With a bit of green. The green is
and
helpful
yellow
because it's a contrasting colour. We'll go into colour theory next week, but yes, it makes
there's
sense.
some yellow as well in there. Like the end
It's
of the
a kind of
dress,
goldy
like the
yellow,
dress,
but
like...
this is what I mean. This is, as an initial design, this is cool. As a piece of artwork, I think it's ace. But as a character design, it doesn't work, and they did dumb it down a lot, which makes sense.
What is it like? Is that what it looks like?
This one is one that I really like to get opinions on because I think the design looks cool, but I think it's so much going on. It makes no sense. Like, I can't tell what this character is at all. Like, she's got
something druidy, but like
it's a druid, but it's from a JRPG, and I think she's meant to be the bad guy, but she's also got
like green
flowers.
She's like green and flowers. Yeah. Hold on a second.
Yeah, it's got.
Feels like someone that's come out of League of Legends.
It does. It look if anyone's played Mortal Kombat 11, it looks a little bit too much like Cetrion, who's like the god of like of plants and nature and that. But she's also got these big sort of. It's either hair, but it looks like it's wind. So I'm like, cool. So she's the god of plants and wind. But then she's also got these. Her hair is halos, and it's like, oh, it makes no sense. It doesn't.
Yeah.
She's meant to be this all-powerful wizard, but why has she got the hot legs sticking out?
Yeah.
You know, why is she doing the runway thing? I don't get it. It's like I like the design.
She has claws as well.
The design is cool. It looks like Poison Ivy with a lot of extra steps. Dylan, you are 100% correct.
Oh.
But it's the fact of
Legendary comment.
if you look at it, the silhouette is really unique. Like I've never seen a silhouette like this. She looks She looks like a version of.
It's recognizable.
It's recognizable.
It's a very unique silhouette, but I'm not sure if it would be recognizable.
It's
Just
confusing.
because of how many different edges there are.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you'd
Nothing
see it as a
has defined
silhouette and just be
lines.
like, "That's just you spilt paint." Why didn't you get me to call it a character?
Yeah. This is the silhouette is good, but you've taken it like 7 steps too far, kind of thing. She's got tattoos on her leg, which is absolutely fine, but then that's also being distracted by the fact she's got this thing wrapped around her arm. And then she's also got, like, her face is covered, which is fine, but they've not added detail to the face to draw attention to it. Cetrion, but edgy, basically.
There's also, like, the flowers on the dress and so much.
It's overly doing it, and then her
I'm
entire
only
dress
just
here looks
noticing
like a rose.
noticing some of these things now, and I've been looking at it for a good 5 minutes.
I can't tell what it is. The best one, though, I saved the best for last, because this one, I think, I found this on a forum, and I've linked it in the useful links at the end of the presentation, but this boy, oh dear. So we'll go through all the things. Someone went through this character design, which I believe is just it's like a standard JRPG that someone's found. But
yeah, I think it's from a game. Yeah,
it's so we start off with Pizza Cutter Sword. This is a
Cool,
sword.
though.
Someone spilt their inventory on this one. Yeah, it's Dragon. Is it Dragon Quest? I don't think it
They
is.
fell
It's
over
not
and
the
their
art style
dragon
Dragon
holding
Quest. But...
spilled out and just became living.
Yeah.
Our game includes the ability to see all of your inventory on one person
On one
at
character.
the same
Yeah,
time.
but if you go through the inventory, he has 4 belts. Why? Why are there 4 belts? It makes no sense. So we've got a pizza cutter sword, an obligatory arm bandage. For some reason, they just have to put a bandage on their arm.
I mean, like,
a,
a
a
cool
red
rebel,
beret. Semi.
He also has the ends of like what was it, kind of like brigadier looking arms.
Yeah, and it's like he's
What's
carrying
going
a
on
sword.
here?
Like, this works if you're Cloud from Final Fantasy VII because you're a magic warrior with like earth powers.
Also, but
not
also
this
Cloud
dude.
is so much less like detailed and more like refined.
Why has he got a book holder with pizzas in it? It makes no sense. Like, it looks like he's got a book and
It's
pizza.
not. It is a book. It's a book with pizzas as covers.
But and
If
then
you look
Oh my
really
God.
carefully, you can tell.
He's got a normal non-pizza
to
cut
cutting sword, yeah. He's got a
he has
normal
double
sword.
that isn't a pizza cut.
For some reason, they're wearing pants and tights and
Pay
boots,
cuts, or are they just shorts?
And dungarees.
ripped up cape and cloak, which is like, what's the point? You're wearing, you know, a 4-leaf clover. Oh, because that means they're lucky. A secret shield. Yeah, so you got shields for arm things. It's like, you can't swing a sword like that. This is my OC. Do not steal. You know, this is that level of.
Nothing
Why has he got
personality.
shields on his knees? Why? Why are there
Wait,
shields
he's
on
on
his
his
knees?
knees.
That's the thing, he's actually got another sword.
He's got another tiny
I
sword
know.
here, and he's also
Yeah,
got.
He has another non-pizza sword, which if you look at it, has about 3 different handles. What?
He's also wearing 2 different types of glove. He's got a blue one here and a red one here. He's got the same thing on his pants
One
as
like
his
a
elbow
gauntlet
here,
sort
but
of
not
thing,
on
like
this
metal
arm.
and hard, and they got a level.
Look at them high heels, though.
Red
Look at them high
fingers.
heels.
Yeah,
Yo!
the high heel. This is the level of, and even the hair. Hair doesn't work like this. You know what I mean? It's just one of them things of this character makes no sense. It's really cool design. I wouldn't want to see it in a game because I wouldn't know where to look. And the colour theming, it's like, okay, we need to pick primary colours. Cool. Let's pick all of them. Let's open up a pack of Crayola and put them all on the character. That's all we're doing.
Just flipping see-through, like,
Yeah.
you can see through his hair.
It's
You've got
Superman
glass
for
pizza
RPG, yeah.
cutter,
Mr.
his
Everything.
glass pizza cutter, his metal chain that goes from pizza cutter. Question mark.
Also, is he wearing bitcoins on his elbows?
I mean, I think so. But also, what are these part of his? Are these? So you can see what I mean. He's got a ladybird. It's like a ladybird or a bomb. I can't tell. Big shirt cuffs, but no sleeves.
No, I think it's a bit of both.
Also, the chain design is attached to the sword. It doesn't attach to the character at all.
Yeah.
It adds extra damage because he goes with the sword, like headbutts him first,
Chain
then
do, like-
whoosh.
Yeah,
He's got like a weird, like,
his arm and drags him into you.
It's just a mishmash, isn't it? But it's one of them things of, this is probably someone's like favourite character of all time, and I'm probably stomping all over them. But at the same time, it's just not a good character design. I'm still upset about the pizza book holder.
Why is there a question mark there? It's big shirt cuff, but no sleeve, question mark?
Yeah, because they're not wearing a shirt. They're wearing dungarees and a shirt that's not being held up by anything. That's also their pants.
And
They're wearing a romper and dungarees, but they're the same piece of clothing. It makes no sense. There's no
He looks
consistency.
like Sora from Kingdom
So,
Hearts, just gone way
This
back.
is what I mean by you're designing a character, and so, well, my character's super lucky, so I've got to put a clover pin on them, but they've got a big sword. But that's so, oh, it's got a big chain because it's to show that they're being weighed down and they're tied to this sword. But they've also got
They're
this blue
also
glove.
like
It's
animals,
like,
so I'm going to put a ladybug on them.
oh, they're a ladybug because they're in one with nature. And this thing is from their granddad who died and sent them on this quest. and they love
has a
pizza.
pizza
It's
book.
like, oh my god, this is
Because
too
he's a
much.
pizza deliverer.
No, that's
That's
it.
his
That's the
job.
story. He just
This is
you
the
play the game
Spider-Man
and you
2
just, like,
that we all
you
want.
just walk around. Like if you just work at a pizza.
He's that pizza dude from that one Lego game.
Oh, Pepperoni. The character's
Yeah,
name
he's
is
Pepperoni.
Pepperoni. Yeah, Pizza Art.
Yeah.
Lego Adventure, man. Lego Island was great. Pizza Dogma, the
No.
pizza ball. Yeah, that's it. So,
No,
so
I
storytelling through character, right? So we can kind of tell now that character's backstory is probably the entirety of a novel, right? And that's just one character. So when you're designing your character, you want to try and think about their backstory.
He's like the main character. He's just a background character who just happens
He
to be
he
there.
just works in the
never-
shop.
you
He's
never
just the
speak
pizza
to him.
delivery dude.
No, you
That's
speak to
it.
him and
That's his
all he
job.
is. Yeah, no, you walk into like the local pizza store in town and he just says, "What do you want to order?" And that's it. And that's his only line. He's not even voiced
You found where
actors.
the character's from. It's from an obscure Final Fantasy Tactics DS game. That makes sense. If it's a Tetsuya Nomura game, it makes 100% perfect sense why it's got 18 belts. That's fine. So if you're designing a battle-hardened
Yes,
Space Marine, they likely will not be very thin, fair, and mink. If you're designing a powerful wizard, you typically wouldn't build them to be 8 foot tall and just as wide unless the story calls for it. So you wouldn't have, you wouldn't have Doomslayer.
Like
Doomslayer wouldn't be the bard of your D&D party, you know what I mean? You want to be able to... You should be able to look at a character and go, I know what this is, right? Your idea should always be, if someone's looking at this character right away, what can they pick up from a quick glance? So...
It's like what I was talking about earlier. Like,
Mhm.
you know, saying a character has like a scar that they cover up,
Yeah.
and that's like a lot already. Like,
So-
you can just like see the edge of a big scar on their face or something.
So this is Jack. So if anyone's played Mass Effect 2 and 3, you'll kind of know the backstory of Jack. But Jack in the game, I think, is probably one of my favourite designs, just from storytelling perspective. Purely because in the game, in Mass Effect, just a little bit of lore dump, people have these things called biotic powers, which is it's like a brain chip, or it's like powers that you can use, like you can use telekinesis and all sorts of other things. But it's all implants inside of you. And Jack was an experiment, and they kept cutting her open and messing around with her because she was seemed to be really talented as a kid with being able to use these powers. So they kept cutting her open. You can see through the design. Obviously, she's got scars everywhere, and if you look at all the tattoos, if you go in the game, if you look in real life and look at the scars, all the tattoos are medical scars. They're all medical symbols for things that have happened in the game. So you can go in and you can find out exactly what's happened to her. All these tattoos of faces and stuff is all the different versions of her that they basically ended up she's got tattoos on her head, she's shaved her head because obviously she's constantly having stuff jabbed in there, she can't have hair, and then in number 3 when they save her in number 2, she grows her hair out because obviously she doesn't have to keep getting her head cut open to have more stuff put in there. So I think that's a really cool little bit of character design and storytelling. But she doesn't wear a lot of clothing because she is so used to just wearing medical gowns and being cut open all the time and being left to basically do everything. I think tattooing the belly button is a bit much. Yeah, but they kept, again, if you notice the scars, they've cut her straight down the chest and cut her open here, so she's probably got that tattoo down there just to try and cover the scars. But there's tattoos on tattoos, there's layers on layers on layers of things, where they've put stints and stuff in her hands. So it's a little bit of character design that I think looks really well if you know the backstory. It helps enrich in that. But if you look at her and you've never played Mass Effect, you just think, this lady looks like a bit of a badass because she looks like she's not super thin. She's fairly built. She's shaved her head, so that instantly means that she's some sort of renegade because that's apparently what that means nowadays.
Everybody knows that being bald increases your power tenfold.
Yeah, well, there's a slide later on that I'll show you, which bald characters were the thing. She looks like she belongs on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looks like she belongs on the streets and she's going to beat you up.
Someone has no idea what I've not played Mass Effect at all. She looks like a villain more than anything.
That's the thing. She is this. It makes kind of sense why she's a villain. She's actually a good guy, but she starts off being this she tries to kill most of the crew because she thinks you're trying to capture her to take her back. So she starts off being this sort of you're rescuing her and she's misunderstood. And I think that helps because you think on the outside she's this really scary, tough exterior. and
Just
once you
like
get
that,
to
you
know her,
just-
she's actually sweet on the inside, and I think that
She's
helps
got-
because
you know, like
it's
it kinda,
subverting that.
because of the fact that she's been like just messed with so much. She's
Yeah.
still basically a child.
Yeah, she's I mean I think she's in her 20s in the game, but it's the fact of you can design stuff and then subvert it. So her design would scream bad guy, but once you get in game, she looks super scary and over the top. But that's because that's the thing she's portraying. And then when you get to know her, she's actually like really sweet, and all she wants is a family and everything else. So that's kind of that's how designing works. You know, you want to have what do you want the character to be versus what do you want the player to see, and it's kind of you can do that. Doomslayer's the next one. I think if you look at this guy, you wouldn't think
Yeah.
this is a character from Mario Kart. You know what I mean? He's got a shoulder cannon.
Also is overwhelming badass. He's going to kill you.
Yeah, you can tell he's battle
Exactly
scarred.
what we want.
Doomslayer has better backstory. His bunny died. That is actually true. His bunny rabbit dies, and he goes back to hell and kills people. That is the Doomslayer.
No,
book.
like half the reason for him being like really mad is that they killed his bunny, so that's why like the lore of the game is that the reason that he's so powerful and so like killing is because he's really angry at demons for like killing people, and half of that is that they killed like his entire family. But
Yeah.
before that, they killed his
They killed his
rabbit.
rabbit. You don't go killing a man's
How
rabbit.
dare
but
they kill the rabbit?
I know.
All it takes for you to become an absolute monster in combat is to kill
Well,
your
but
rabbit.
yeah, but they changed that in backstory because Doomslayer looked a little bit different, and if you've played Eternal and the DLC, it does change the backstory a little bit. But if you were to look at this straight away, you'd think this guy is ready for combat. He's going to go, rip some things apart. He's not going to sit there, He's not going to be the protagonist of Super Hello Kitty Island, is he? You know what I mean? It's not going to happen. I mean, I'd love to see him in
Internet
Hello
would
Kitty
happen
Island
for
Adventure,
years.
but it's not going to happen.
The internet
I don't know why he's covered up everywhere except his arms.
Yeah,
and
because
one place that he's not covered up, they are very much going to pop out any second now.
because he's so angry. He's so angry, yeah, but it kind of makes sense because he's pulling guns out of everywhere. You kind of don't want to have armor there because it restrict his movement.
Yeah,
It does
true.
kind of make sense, but also you got to show off the
in general,
guns.
like,
This is the thing
I
of
think, like,
designing something to look cool and also having a function. Like it makes sense. It also is a big thing of why are his entire bicep showing? But when the rest of the design works so well, you are allowed little bits and pieces of this is stupid.
we want this to look really cool.
Kirby.
Like-
So Kirby is
Ugh.
an overly simple design, but does it work?
Love him.
Yeah, it
So-
works really well.
Best
He's
character.
not
ever.
a complicated character, is he?
Yeah. Kirby is a character that
I mean, he literally murders gods, so yeah,
he does. He's
He's a
overly
god killer.
powerful, but
multiple times over.
Kirby
He's killed
is a
every god.
character
The
that.
strongest being in any universe.
But if you look at the design itself, like you can tell a lot from the character straight away. So it depends on whether you look at the Japanese or the American version. Because in the
He's
American
just happy
version,
and he likes food.
he's happy. You can tell he's a
He
little
does,
orb,
because-
right? Kirby's actually a design to test a game, but they liked it so much. Yeah. So Kirby was it was the guys at HAL Laboratory who made Earthbound and all them games. They also made Smash Bros. But HAL originally made the first Kirby, I believe, and they basically just put this pink blob in the game and went, "This is our base character. We're just using this for testing," and then they just liked it so much. But Kirby is a design character. It's very simple, but the game itself is very simple. It's not overly complex. Kirby is a thing that
Yeah.
loves to eat things. Like his entire ability is, I can eat
Jump
things
around,
and absorb
eat
them.
things, and then kill other things with the things you eat.
Yeah. So they've
Yeah.
made it
If you
really
want it
simple.
to
They
be more
didn't-
complicated than just
I like
until
how
he
in
has a
like
copy ability.
America, he's always angry. Like any
Yeah,
box art of him, he's just like super angry, and then
Yeah,
he
they
goes
just give
to
him
Japan,
frowny
like,
eyes,
"Hello,
which
I'm
is
Kirby."
weird.
That's only in like Americanized box art. He's really angry. In Japanese box art, he's always just like, yeah.
Yeah, because-
good."
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to be
Okay.
riding this
Cool.
star,
I don't know
fighting
why.
a penguin. So Star Fox team. So
It is not.
I like the Star Fox team design a lot. Does anyone
Very.
notice any similarities between all four characters? Because if you looked at them, you'd think, oh, they're all,
They're
they're
the
all.
same style.
They all have red bandanas.
They all
I'm
have red
proud of them.
bandanas. What else?
They have red bandanas, the weird triangle belt, and they're all wearing like single.
I mean, their
jumpsuits.
outfits all look very similar, except
Yeah.
for the fact they're just different colours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can tell they're a cohesive unit. So even though one's a bird, one's a rabbit, one's a fox, and one's a frog, you know, technically in the real
Rabbit
world,
is more like a researcher as well, like a
Yeah.
smart one because he's got a lab coat on instead of like
Yeah.
combat jacket that the rest of them have.
also just by the way they're standing as well, you can tell kind of Fox is
Fox
the
and
leader.
Falco are like the combat ones. He's
Yeah.
the side, like the bunny is. I don't know. Like,
Slippy's a moron.
Yeah. Well,
Slippy's
obviously
the
he's an
mechanic,
engineer,
isn't he? But you can tell he's a mechanic because his design,
Yeah.
it speaks more of, well, he
Yeah.
looks like he's wearing
He's got a
overalls
wrench,
and he's got a little hat on.
One thing.
Budget,
That's
someone
not
just said
bad.
budget Power Rangers, yeah. But you can tell straight from the designs, and also because they're all in space, they've all got these same boots. Now, if you read, this is just a little bit of a lore dump as well, but if you read into Star Fox lore, and it's something that pilots in the real world do sometimes, they'll wear compression socks, or they'll, if in some cases, they'll even have their legs removed. Because when you go into zero G and you're flying around and doing aileron rolls and barrel rolls and stuff, all the blood will rush to your feet, and you'll not be able to think and you'll die. So what they do is in this universe, they all have metal feet, because what they do is they remove the feet, and that way blood can't rush to your legs. That makes you a better pilot, because not all the blood will rush to your feet, so it stays in your brain when you're spinning round at 4,000 miles an hour. But the design itself is cohesive. They all make sense. You can tell this guy's kind of in charge because he's not wearing the same sort of flight crew jacket as the others. He's kind of got this upturned collar, which you see is kind of like an Admiral Akbar sort of callback from Star Wars. You can tell that Slippy's kind of because his design is he's a lot rounder. And again, this goes into shape language, which is something we'll cover in a bit.
The round boy.
He's a round boy, but it means that he's more. It kind of makes him more accessible, if that was. He's the village idiot. He is, but he's also a mechanic.
He's the village.
But you can kind of get the idea he's a mechanic. One, he's holding a spanner, which is fine. But also, he's got his little mechanic's hat on, which is a trademark of anyone that's a mechanic. He also is the only one that's not wearing a full-blown eye visor. He's wearing a little one. So why would he need one if he's a mechanic? So, and then Falcon.
Also,
Mm-hmm.
like his jackets, all are different. All of their jackets are different.
But they're tailored to the
Like he
character.
he has like a more like bulky, like he's gonna be welding stuff and working stuff, throw sparks everywhere, so he needs to cover him.
So you can tell they're a
he's got,
team without actually
He's got
knowing
like
they're a team.
steel around the cuffs of his jacket.
So you can tell it's for heavy duty to stop sparks getting in his jacket. Fox and Falco. Falco's is designed obviously because he's a bird. He's got feathers, so his needs to be kind of open and flush. And
He's
then
a
Star
bird.
Fox himself has actually got, his arms up because he's trying to be the cool leader. It's a Maverick throwback. Falcon's the last one I want to look at. Because it's the idea of simplicity, but you get a lot of ideas just from the character being really simple. So, what can we tell? If you never knew this character before, what can you tell straight away? He looks like every other superhero. Yeah, he looks like a superhero, but there's little things that tell you exactly what he is. His pose says he's heroic, as Bernie Joe just said. He looks really heroic. He's got a crash helmet on. He's got a crash helmet on.
His hands and feet as well.
You can tell he's some kind of racer because of his helmet.
Yeah, he's also got racing gloves on. He has a pistol, which means that he's used to combat, but I don't think he ever uses the pistol.
No,
he's
never.
used that pistol.
Yeah, so this
He's
is Captain
doesn't
Falcon.
use his pistol.
He was like with a pose as well. Like he's posing up for a punch. Like be his arms and his feet, like his hands and his feet are both emphasized by the yellow kind of gauntlet things.
Yeah. He's
So
also
that shows he kicks and punches.
This also goes into the the thing of. We'll cover this next week when we go into colour theory, but all three of his main colours, yellow, blue, and red, are all the three primary colours, which means that he's the main character. Mario's the exact same. Mario uses red, blue, and yellow as his main colours. He uses neutrals like brown, black, and white, and skin colour. And then you've got Luigi, who's the second, and Luigi uses green, which is the polar opposite to red. So with Captain Falcon, you can tell he's also... I mean, personality-wise, what can we tell? We can tell he's kind of a show-off. Why? Because he's moulded six-packs into his suit. That's not his actual six-pack, because this is a rubber suit. He has moulded the muscles into his suit. Right? You can kind of tell. His name is Captain Falcon. He has a big old bird on the front of his helmet, right? He has I think he has little falcons on his things as well. And he has like falcons on his shoes. So he's clearly trying to get over the idea that he's a superhero, even though he's basically space NASCAR driver. That's it. So it makes sense. He also has a gun for some reason. You know what I mean? But this is a secondary. Because he's using a secondary colour, it stands out. He's not using yellow, he's using green. So it kind of blends in with the rest of his design. The red sticks out because he's using this yellow, blue, and obviously yellow and blue together make green. So the rest of his body kind of molds into one shape, and the thing that you're drawn to is his helmet, which is the red. We'll go into this more next week, but design-wise, you can get a lot of the character without even knowing it, right? There's a lot of subtle things. You can tell he's strong, he's got muscles, but he's also a bit of a show-off because he's carved them into his suit. So shape and why it's important. So shape is probably this is why I wanted to go shape first week, is because you don't realise just how much you use shape when designing good characters. So shape is so important to the general feel of our characters, and it helps us tell a lot about them without pointing the big neon sign telling us details. So shapes convey feelings subconsciously to a person based on the way they look, just like the way names, words, and sounds do. It's just this a little more subtly. As we looked in our silhouetting presentation, shape can be used to help start and set the tone of a design. The difference between silhouetting and designing is that when we silhouette, we are trying to create a recognisable shape and framework to tell our story. Design is how we refine and tell that story. Okay, so this is a little test, right? And it's called which one is Kiki and which one's Booba. So, which one is Kiki and which one is Booba?
The spiky one's Kiki and the rounder one's Booba.
What makes you say that?
It's like Kiki's a sharper sounding word and Booba sounds rounder.
Right. So you've got it spot on. So Kiki and Booba. So the Kiki Booba effect is a non-arbitrary mapping between speech sounds and the visual impact. So that's big science terms for words make sound shapes in your head. So if you're I think it's the kind of reason why if you ever played Overwatch and you see someone that plays Reaper, they've always got a name like Dark XX Sephiroth XX666 because they're trying to be really cool, and they're trying to add all these like super dark names to things to try and make them sound more awful. If I was a Reaper player, I'd go with the name like Fluffy Bunnykins and just wind people up because it wouldn't make no sense, right? 95 to 98% of people.
I woke up and I was immediately at college, so I couldn't have done it anyway.
Jumped into a lobby. Hi guys, it's me, Wholesome Gaming number 23.
Wholesome Gaming 96. Rank check in chat.
Okay.
I've not played Overwatch in so long.
I'm going to take them out for coffee after.
So.
Yeah, no, I'm not about that.
What are you bothered about?
Can't move. Cool. So, think about it this way. 98% of people basically said the same thing, that the round shaped one is Booba and the sharp shaped one is Kiki, right? So if you have a character with a sharp or less rounded sounding name, you don't expect them to be rounded or smoother shaped. It's like Kirby. Kirby's a nice round name. If Kirby was called Captain Falcon, it really wouldn't work. Same goes with how characters look. If a character has a lot of harsh edges and sharp angular points, you don't expect them to be slow or weak. I typed it wrong, but it's weak. I have to leave in 20 minutes. That's fine. We should be done in the next 10 anyway. So it'd be like trying to make an octopus out of right angles. It just wouldn't look right. So, for example, I love the design of Roadhog, going back to Overwatch. I love the design of Roadhog because the majority of his body language is circles. So, obviously, his stomach is a circle, his head's a circle, he's got circles here, tires. Obviously, it calls back to the thing of him and Junkrat are scavengers. Even his boots, they've got curves here. He's got cylinders everywhere. It's all just a lot of circles.
I also think as well, like when you think like Kiki and Boba, it like the way it's said, it's a pair. It's not two separate characters that just happen to be like that you're comparing. It's a pair of characters that go together. And I think like Roadhog and Junkrat, partly design and the names also just like pair up.
Yeah. And it's the thing as well, if you think of the name Roadhog, you split it up. Road is like a quite rounded word. And then Hog's got that really hard G at the end, like that percussive G. So he doesn't just have a lot of round shapes, he also has things that jut out of it, which obviously, if you've played the game, you know he's a tank, which he's built like a tank. You know, he's physically the size of an actual Panzer tank.
He looked like you'd run a bus into him and the bus would flip over and he'd just carry on walking.
But they've also, with the design itself, they've also designed it so like his gun holder is shaped like a pig. Obviously, his little ear, the eyes and the mouth are here. He's got a little pig emblem here. You know, everything's designed to kind of fit that aesthetic of he's gone full, without being a pun, full ham on being Roadhog. His design is he's taking bits of cars and he's tweaking them. His colour design is he's gone with a lot of these darker metallic colours, so blues and greys, and he's got yellow as accents because they are typically used as car accent colours. He's obviously got a big pig tattoo, which again adds to the whole thing of he's got lots of round shapes everywhere. His mask obviously pig design, so this is I think is a thoroughly well designed character. Without obviously the tattoos add a lot of chaos to everything. He's got little badges, which is fine. It's not too over the top and it works in game. But if he was to have a lot more of that detail, like he was completely covered in tattoos, it would be too much overkill. Tracer's another good one. Tracer uses a lot of primary colours. Again, going back to the whole thing, Tracer is kind of the thing that they were pushing with the game. Her and Widowmaker were the kind of thing that they were using to push the game. A lot of little details. Obviously, there's a lot, because her design is inspired not only by pilots, but by plane design as well. There's a lot of sleek lines that going into it. So the body language is a lot of curves. If we go back to the video I think I put up a couple of weeks ago, which is about character design itself, they talk about why Tracer's character design works and what goes wrong. So they've used a lot of neutral colours that you would find on a plane design. They've given her a sort of, they've given her the goggles, and they've given her orange and blue, which are contrasting colours, which are colours that are complete polar opposites of each other.
Yeah.
So that helps.
It was like, like the plane stuff. Like, she's got a pilot's jacket because she was a pilot, and you got like the gauntlets that you like more like mechanical and like fine.
You've also, if you look into the history of it, a lot of old modern. If you look at a lot of old World War II fighter planes as well, they used to have like decals on the side of kind of ladies and stuff to try and keep the boys motivated, which is an old semblance, but it used to happen. We can't really deny that. But they used to do that, and her design is quite inspired by that. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, which again they did a really good job with her. Some of the Overwatch characters are a bit lazy, but like I picked these two out because
when
they
the
do.
Game came out, there was like one of the poses got patched and changed.
Yeah, it did, and it makes a lot more sense. It makes a lot more sense.
It looked like, and people like at first kind of think, oh, it's because it's sexual. It's like, no, his complaint was, it doesn't fit the character. He's right.
Yeah, it does. It didn't fit the
character. So they changed.
And then changed to another one that was more sexual, but that was like roughly the same amount of sexuality.
It did, but didn't.
But
There's a video on that.
So much better.
I have a video on that which I'll post up.
Yeah.
It explains a lot more. Someone SARS just said, does the main character need to have a unique look? Not really. If you look at things like a modern character, I think that works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends what you're going for as well. Like if you want to have like the main character as like alone, like it's like a game where you play as the main character and you don't have any like help or anything, then they can look like what you. But if you want like a team game, you want like the designs of the team to match.
Yeah.
So it looks like a parent team, not just.
But at the same time,
together.
Say you're playing something like Red Dead 2. John Marston doesn't look any different from a lot of other people. He fits in with the time. He doesn't stand out, but he has unique things that help him stand out. So you kind of want to. You don't want to make your main character look like Sephiroth and everyone else look like Kirby. You know what I mean? You want to make them look like they work in the same world, but you want to have the main characters stand out. It depends on the setting. Like obviously, if you're doing a World War II shooter, you don't want your guy to look super different because he's not going to look like a generic soldier which you're going to be playing. You want to kind of make them memorable, and this is why I will never bash Call of Duty for its character design, because they have a tough job of trying to make characters look memorable whilst also making them look realistic. Like with God of War, yeah, you can make Kratos 7 foot tall and have him rip the heads off giants and all that, which is fine because it's fantasy, but if you're doing something based on reality, you've kind of got to stick with that reality. You wouldn't have a guy that was glowing neon in the middle of a battlefield. I mean, they do have them skins, but it's whatever. So the Bob versus Rufus effect. Now this video I'm going to let you watch in your own time, but this is two different companies' design aspects of storytelling through games. Now both of them tell their stories well, but one of them works as a character and one of them I think doesn't. Bob, if you know Tekken lore, Bob is a character that was like a world-class martial artist, but because he was so small and frail, he wasn't getting anywhere. Like he would beat up everyone, but because a lot of guys were bigger than him physically, he had a lot of trouble with them. So what he did in the canon was he went and put on a load of weight, but he also kept training the same way. So he is a big dude that can do lots of flips, and he's very agile and graceful. And his design, you can tell that because his clothes are all tailor-made to fit him. He wears stuff that flatters his body angles. He isn't like an overly slobbish. He's very graceful. He's just a bigger guy. Whereas you look at Rufus, and the video that's on the next slide in this presentation kind of explains it. Rufus is the kind of guy who watches kung fu films and learns from kung fu films. He's very slovenly. He's designed to look cool rather than designed to work and form and function. He's got this awful beard and hair combo. He's got an ill-fitting suit. He's always talking about food. It's the overly slovenly character, and it's what a lot of fat characters in games look like. And you can make them
all
look
like characters,
cool.
aren't they? Of like, haha, look fat.
Yeah, that's how his design
Makes
is.
one.
But as a design, it works because that's what his character is meant to be. He is meant to be a comedy goof, which makes sense. But it's also, you don't have to just fall into these traits. You can make a character look really good. It's all about conscious design.
Got,
So there's the video there.
He's like Bob.
Mm.
Bob is fat.
Yeah.
There's no way around that. He's a fat guy.
Yeah, but he made himself that way. That's the thing. You can tell that he's kind of
It
he
doesn't
knows his
feel like
place.
you're an insult. It's like, oh, it's his personal tactical advantage is that he has a lot of weight but knows how to throw it around well.
Mm.
So he has big, heavy hits that like are hard to dodge because they're fast. Like, that's cool and smart. It makes sense. Some people don't. Like just haha he fat has been done quite a few times.
Yeah. Now this is the Dark Shape Challenge. Now this is something we'll probably cover later on, but it's a shape challenge that a lot of people do, where you are just given a random shape. You're given one of these, and you're told to try and design something around it. And I think we'll go into it a little bit more because we're running out of time. But it's really good if you want to try and stretch yourself and challenge yourself. Try and look at these. Like, just try and create a random blob shape and then try and design a character around it and try and use your imagination, because it does help build speed and stuff when designing stuff really quickly. People also do these one shape challenges. So you've got one head shape and you've got to try and come up with as many different characters as possible. And all these look completely different, but they're all using that one base
They
shape.
all have like, as well with just the faces.
Mm.
It's like really well like simplified, like good faces. You can tell their personalities.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is the thing.
Let's go for like the like if you go through the 9 one, the first one's like strict and stern. Second one's like a good friend, but like
And
a
it's
good friend and he's
yeah.
there to help you. The next one's like evil boss at a company.
You know what I mean?
The
But
next one-
again, that's
the
all
one
about
he's right
shape.
now.
That is all
Yeah.
about shape, because shape, again, you'll see in a second why shape's so important. So again, this is just a thing you can try out at some point. So
Like, yeah.
what certain shapes help convey? So shapes really help. So when we think of circles, like again Kirby, soft, squishy, harmless, they've got no sharp edges, they can't hurt you. Approachable and changeable. So we think of things that are like really quite sturdy, but they're basically inviting, which is why a lot of icons and stuff, as we can see in the Google chat right now, are all circles. If they're all squares, it's kind of harsh. Solid, sturdy, strong, supportive, reliable, and inflexible. So a square is something, literally a square. It's something that's a powerhouse, it's strong. Triangles are used to like this sharp directional dynamic, right? So what you want to do is you want to have like soft and squishy. It's changeable's an approachable thing because obviously it's a little bit fluid. So we look at the Aladdin characters. Like Aladdin's entire character is he's the lovable rogue, really. So they've given him this sort of, it's kind of like a reverse hourglass sort of shape, where he's more heavy towards the legs and the top's a little bit more free. So you can kind of tell he's kind of approachable. Jasmine's the same, except she's obviously they've hyper accentuated the hip gap just to try and feminize her a little bit more. The Sultan, they've made him a lot out of circles because he's just a big oaf. Now Jafar, what they've done is they've made him basically out of two triangles, which is again dangerous, but they've made him rounder, so it's trying to make that approach of he's kind of dangerous, but
He's
he's
totally
meant to
not
look
evil, I
approachable.
promise.
He's meant to look approachable, yeah, but it's also that thing of unknowing, it's mysticizing. What does Circle say?
Yeah,
Circle.
Carl Animal Wood.
Oh, that's from Up. So Carl's basic head shape is a square, whereas Ellie, her hair, because of the way her hair sits, she's basically a circle. So like when she was a kid, her haircut was, she had a little face here and her hair was basically a circle. So it's why am I? You're not a circle. It's all from Up. It's like the dynamic between the two in Monsters Inc. as well. You know, they're
This tiny ball guy that like
Yeah.
really good bounce
harmless.
around.
He's harmless, whereas Sully
And
is
this
mostly square.
huge guy who's like,
Yeah.
could easily throw you a mile.
Yeah, exactly. And then Carpet, it makes sense as a character design because it is this thing of we don't know what it is. It's a rounded square, so it's kind of, we know it's kind of reliable, but also it's changeable and approachable, but we don't know what it is. So you don't have to obviously stick to circles, squares, and triangles, but it's kind of rounded shapes are meant to be more friendly, harsher shapes are meant to be more sort of dangerous. So circles, again, I'll let you read through this at your own time because there's a lot of stuff in here. So circular details, so stuff like stuff on dresses. You know, this old grandma, she ain't gonna go being all Kratos and ripping demons' heads off. She ain't gonna do that. Squares are built for people with bigger frames, or they're to show sort of rigidity.
Yeah.
So that's why crew cuts are normally square. Squaring off things like jaws, shoulders, and even hands, they not only feel strong but can feel difficult to move. So squared off pose. So that's showing that she's kind of, this person here is kind of, they're up front. They're they're very bad at books.
You can use squares without making it very big. Like the one on the left is just a big square guy. The other one's like little reasonable kind of sizes.
Triangles. So triangles can be used to benefit as well. So triangles are sharp, exaggerating the size and length of the shapes can heighten fear. So obviously a lot of but wide base as well. It's a rounded triangle, so it's kind of like, oh, you just want to go pet her on the head. You know, it's like this. It's helping to build them shapes. So again, don't just think of characters as triangles, squares, and circles, but think of like the general shapes of them. So this is something I like to say is a don't. So don't make a character look cool or sexy for the sake of it. So this is a list of characters that were compiled from like the Xbox 360 era. Can you tell the difference between a lot of them?
No.
They're all generic dudes with short hair, apart from Geralt, but Geralt's also looks very similar to a lot of other characters. But it's all, scowly dudes with, very plain faces, chiseled jaws. It's all the same hairline. None of them have got any different hairlines.
Wait, why is Mario bald?
I think that was just thrown as a goof, but it kind of makes sense. You've got how many games here? EastEnders is thrown in here for some reason.
Well, I hate some of these. These are disgusting.
But it makes sense.
Like-
It's
Who do that to me?
these characters. They all look very similar because they went by the design by committee phase, which is, oh, we're gonna make this character look ultra badass. We're gonna give it. He doesn't have long hair because he's super cool. And then this guy, well, they gave him a mohawk because he's a badass, but he has hair. And then this guy's like, well, we're gonna give him that 80s throwback hair because he's like a merc. He's a mercenary. And it's like, ugh, it's designed by committee. They've all got no hair, stubble. It's just like, nah, you're all right.
Like
Three of these are Star Killer.
Well,
Three of these are the same character. These are all from 3 different games, though. That's
which
from
ones? Oh,
that's from Force Unleashed 1, I think. That's from
no, you
Soul
can't see them
Calibur, and
now,
that's from
but
Force
it'll be
Unleashed
like-
2.
I can't see the mouse.
Oh.
So I don't know what you're pointing
Let
to.
me. Is the pointer here?
Yeah.
Do I have the pointer?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Damn it. So if you have a look it's on the right hand side. It'll show up on the recording anyway. But it's just they all look very similar. But something that is a do is remember SPES. I tried to come up with one that was special and it didn't work. Silhouette, palette, exaggeration, and shape. So
Yes.
Homer Simpson is a pretty well designed character. He has a silhouette which is iconic. You can tell it's him from afar. His color palette is very simple. It's not overly complex. It's very simple. And they've exaggerated areas. Like, if this was a real person, they'd look like a nightmare. But they've exaggerated things in a correct way. So just think, if your character isn't working, if you think your character doesn't look right, just think, is the silhouette distinct, or does it convey what emotions or actions you're trying to achieve? You can tell by the silhouette he's kind of relaxed. He's not, he's not aggressive. It's not a very forward-facing stance. It's kind of, he's leaning back. He's kind of chill, which is it's sort of the character. He's a lovable oaf. Is the colour palette fitting with the environment or setting? So again, going back to Call of Duty, I know they do have skins in Call of Duty and Doom where you can be a unicorn man. That's kind of a cool novelty, but they're not selling the game on, you are the unicorn Doomslayer. It's not, they're selling the entire game based on that. It's just a fun novelty.
It is something quite interesting about, like, The Simpsons. They have, like, incredibly recognisable colour palettes as well.
Yeah.
Like, you'll see pictures that are literally just, like, 3 rows, like, however many
you could tell Homer Simpson. You could tell Homer Simpson just from having the yellow, the brown, the white, and the blue, because it's the colour palette. Because they were designed to be yellow because Matt Groening, when they made the first season, he made them yellow. So when people were flipping through the channels, they would come on this channel and go, "Why are all the characters yellow? It makes no sense." And people would sit there and try and fiddle with the colour settings on the TV, because it was that long ago. You had a colour setting on the TV, and within 5-10 seconds, there would have been a joke, and they would have stayed and carried on watching the show. That's the only reason The Simpsons are yellow, is because he tried to trick people to watching the show longer. With the colour palette as well.
I respect the grind.
Again, if you pick a colour palette that doesn't work, yeah. If you pick a colour palette that doesn't work, it's actually a thing called ludonarrative dissonance. So this is things in games like, when, if you've ever played Metal Gear Solid, when it's like, Snake, press the X button. It's like, Snake doesn't have an X button. Snake is a person. How can Snake press the X button? It doesn't make sense. Same thing with that. If the Doomslayer is this almighty sort of doom god, but he's dressed like a pink unicorn man, it's kind of like, does it make sense in the story? No. But it's a little bit of fun that people have.
Is it funny? Yes.
So exaggeration of areas to draw key focus to. So this is going back to my thing of have a couple of details that make a bigger impact, then add little things in later. So this doesn't have to be overly blown out of proportion but exaggeration highlighting areas you want to call attention to. So we know Homer's this oaf, right? And we want to kind of draw attention to his face. So they've added this, his beard, his stubble. They've also made him a little bit rounder. No man is this shape, right? They've made him overly round to try and make him look fatter than he is. Family Guy do this as well. A lot of cartoons will do this. They'll kind of make characters overly round to try and emphasise that they're a bit on the chubbier side. And then the final S is shape. Does your character's shape language convey the feeling you are trying to achieve? So are they this almighty demigod? No, he's a lovable oaf. Why? Because he's a lot of round. So there's some useful links there. It's basically all stuff that I've used in the presentation, but there's a little bit more in-depth reading for it. So I'm just going to... That's it for the presentations. Anyone got any sort of questions before I stop the video and whatnot? No? Cool.